Welcome to Office Revenge Hub. Sit back and enjoy today's story.
They fired me the day before I could save the company from complete collapse. My name is David Richardson, and for 11 years I worked as the Director of Operations at Meridian Manufacturing, a family-owned industrial equipment company in Cleveland, Ohio. I wasn't just another corporate employee. I was the person who kept that place running. I managed the supply chain, oversaw production schedules, negotiated with vendors, handled quality control, and basically ensured that every order shipped on time and every client stayed satisfied. I worked 70-hour weeks without complaint. I missed my son's basketball games, my daughter's recitals, countless family dinners. I gave everything to Meridian because I believed in what we built. I believed loyalty mattered. The company was founded by Robert Meridian in 1987. Yet by the time I joined in 2012, it had grown into a solid, mid-sized operation with 200 employees and $40 million in annual revenue. Robert was old school, handshake deals, relationships over contracts. He valued people who worked hard and stayed loyal. I was one of those people. He promoted me twice, gave me profit-sharing bonuses, treated me like family. When he announced his retirement in early 2023, I assumed the transition would be smooth. His son, Brandon Meridian, took over as CEO in March. Brandon was 34, MBA from a prestigious school, 5 years of experience at a management consulting firm. He had big ideas about modernizing the company, streamlining operations, maximizing efficiency. I respected that. Manufacturing needed to evolve. I was ready to help him implement changes thoughtfully. But Brandon didn't want thoughtful. He wanted fast. He brought in a team of consultants from his old firm within his first month. They spent 6 weeks analyzing every department, interviewing managers, reviewing financial statements. I cooperated fully. I gave them access to every system, explained our processes, shared data on vendor relationships and production metrics. I thought we were collaborating to improve the company. I was feeding them the ammunition they would use to destroy me. The consultants delivered their report in late May. I wasn't invited to the presentation, but I heard about it from other department heads. The firm had identified significant inefficiencies in operations. They claimed our supply chain was outdated, our vendor relationships were too informal, our quality control processes were redundant. They recommended a complete restructure of the operations department, including replacing current leadership with someone who had modern manufacturing expertise. I still didn't see it coming. I thought my track record spoke for itself. 11 years of on-time deliveries. Client retention rate above 95%. 0 major safety incidents. Profit margins that had increased every year I had been in charge. I thought results mattered more than consultant theories. Brandon called me into his office on a Friday afternoon in early June. His assistant had scheduled it as a strategic planning discussion. I walked in expecting to talk about implementation timelines for the recommended changes. Instead, I found Brandon sitting with the head of HR and one of the consultants. "David, please sit down." Brandon's tone was formal, cold. "We've made some difficult decisions about the future direction of Meridian. Based on the operational review, we've determined that the company needs a different kind of leadership in the operations department. Someone with experience in modern lean manufacturing, digital supply chain management, and data-driven decision-making. We're terminating your employment effective immediately." The words didn't register at first. I just sat there, staring at him, waiting for the punchline. When none came, I said, "You're firing me? We're making a change that's in the best interest of the company's future growth." "Based on what? What have I done wrong? Show me the performance issues. Show me the failures." The consultant spoke up. "Mr. Richardson, this isn't about past performance. It's about future capabilities. The manufacturing landscape is changing rapidly. The company needs leadership that can navigate digital transformation, implement advanced analytics, optimize global supply chains. Your experience, while valuable historically, doesn't align with where Meridian is heading. I turned to Brandon. Your father built this company on relationships and reliability. That's what I've delivered for 11 years. You've been CEO for 3 months and you're going to throw that away because some consultant told you to modernize? My father's approach worked for his era, but we're not in his era anymore. We need to compete with companies that are leaner, faster, more technologically advanced. You're a good person, David, but you're not the right person for where we're going. The HR director slid a folder across the desk. Yumi, we're offering a severance package, 6 months salary, continuation of health benefits for 1 year, and a non-disparagement agreement. We'll need you to sign today. 6 months salary after 11 years of service, after missing birthdays and anniversaries and holidays, after sacrificing my health and time with my family, after keeping that company profitable through recessions and supply chain crises and labor shortages. 6 months. I need time to review this with a lawyer. You can take the weekend, but the offer expires Monday at 5 p.m. After that, it drops to the statutory minimum. They were forcing my hand. Sign now under pressure or lose half the severance. It was a power play designed to prevent me from negotiating or fighting back. I stood up. I want to say goodbye to my team. That won't be possible. We need to make this transition cleanly. We've already informed your direct reports that you're leaving. Someone from IT will escort you to collect your personal items and surrender your access credentials. They were escorting me out like a criminal, like I had embezzled funds or sabotaged equipment, like 11 years of loyalty meant nothing. 20 minutes later, I was in the parking lot with a cardboard box containing a coffee mug, some family photos, and a plaque Robert had given me for 10 years of service. My work phone had been wiped. My company email was already deactivated. My key card didn't work at the gate. I had to wait for security to manually open the barrier so I could leave. I sat in my car for an hour, unable to drive, unable to process what had just happened. My phone started buzzing, text messages from colleagues. What happened? Are you okay? Is it true you're leaving? I didn't respond. I couldn't find the words. I finally drove home. My wife, Jennifer, was in the kitchen when I walked in at 3 p.m. with my pathetic box of belongings. She took one look at my face and knew. Oh my God, they let you go? I told her everything. She listened in silence, her expression shifting from shock to anger to fear. When I finished, she said quietly, "What are we going to do?" That question kept me up for the next 3 nights. What were we going to do? I was 52 years old with a mortgage, 2 kids in college, car payments, medical bills from Jennifer's surgery the previous year. We had some savings, but not enough to sustain us for more than a few months. I had been making $130,000 a year at Meridian. The severance would buy us time, but not security. I started applying for jobs immediately, but the market for operations directors in manufacturing was tight. Most companies wanted younger candidates with specific technical certifications I didn't have. The few interviews I landed went nowhere. Hiring managers would look at my resume, see 11 years at one company, and assume I was set in my ways. Too old, too traditional, not adaptable enough. The financial stress was crushing. We cut every expense we could. No restaurants, no entertainment, no unnecessary purchases. Jennifer picked up extra shifts as a nurse. Our daughter came home from college to save on dorm costs. Our son took out additional student loans. I watched my family sacrifice because I had been naive enough to believe loyalty was rewarded, and the isolation was worse than the money problems. Friends from Meridian stopped calling. Some felt awkward. Others had been warned by management not to maintain contact with terminated employees. A few tried to stay in touch, but conversations were strained. What do you say to someone who just lost everything? I became invisible, a ghost haunting my former life. I started having physical symptoms, chest pains that sent me to the ER twice, only to be told it was anxiety. Insomnia that left me staring at the ceiling at 4 a.m., running through everything I could have done differently. Weight gain from stress eating and lack of exercise. My doctor put me on blood pressure medication and suggested therapy. The self-doubt was the worst part. Maybe Brandon was right. Maybe I was outdated. But maybe my experience was actually a liability in modern manufacturing. Maybe I had been coasting on old systems and relationships instead of innovating. Maybe I deserved to be replaced. I replayed 11 years of decisions, looking for evidence of my incompetence. That vendor contract I negotiated in 2015, could I have gotten better terms? That production schedule modification in 2018, was there a more efficient approach? Every choice I had made suddenly seemed questionable. Every success felt like luck rather than skill. Jennifer found me one night in the garage, going through old performance reviews and project reports, trying to find proof that I had been valuable. David, stop. You know what you accomplished. You don't need to prove it to yourself. Then why did they fire me if I was so good? Why am I unemployable now? Because Brandon is an idiot who values credentials over competence. Because consultants justify their fees by recommending dramatic changes. Because corporate America treats people like disposable assets. None of that reflects on your actual abilities. But knowing that intellectually didn't stop the spiral, I felt worthless. 11 years of my life, reduced to a severance check and a non-disparagement agreement. 3 months after my termination, I was at a coffee shop, pretending to work on job applications, when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. David, it's Martin Kowalski. Martin had been the production floor supervisor at Meridian. Good guy, 23 years with the company. I had worked closely with him on virtually every operational decision. Martin, how are things? Honestly, it's a disaster. Brandon's new operations guy is destroying everything you built. He fired half the experienced floor managers and replaced them with kids fresh out of college who've never worked in manufacturing. He switched all our vendors to the lowest bidders without vetting quality. He implemented this new digital inventory system that doesn't integrate with our production software, so we're basically flying blind. We've missed 3 major delivery deadlines in the past month. 2 of our biggest clients have put us on probation. I felt a grim satisfaction immediately followed by guilt. People I cared about were suffering because of Brandon's incompetence. Why are you telling me this? Because I think it's going to get worse, much worse. Like I found something in the production reports that you need to know about. Martin, I don't work there anymore. Whatever's happening isn't my problem. This is different. The new operations director approved a change to our alloy mixture on the industrial pumps. He's using a cheaper grade of steel to cut costs. David, you know what happens if those pumps fail in high-pressure environments? My blood went cold. Our industrial pumps were used in chemical plants, water treatment facilities, oil refineries, environments where equipment failure could cause explosions, toxic releases, catastrophic accidents. We used premium-grade steel specifically because the margin for error was zero. Switching to cheaper materials to save a few $1,000s per unit was insane. Has anyone raised this with Brandon? I tried. He said the consultants ran the numbers and the new alloy meets minimum industry standards. When I pushed back, he told me I could either support the new direction or find employment elsewhere. Have you documented this? I've got emails, metallurgy reports, cost comparisons, everything, but I don't know what to do with it. If I go to the industry regulator, I'll definitely get fired. But if I don't and something catastrophic happens, I understood his dilemma. He had a family, he needed the job, but he also had a conscience. Send me everything you have. Don't use company email. Use a personal account. And Martin, be careful. If Brandon finds out you're talking to me, you're done. The files arrived that night. I spent the weekend reviewing them. Martin was right. The new alloy mixture met the absolute minimum regulatory requirements, but it had a significantly higher failure rate, under sustained pressure. The old mixture had a failure rate of 0.03%. The new one was 0.8%. That might sound like a small difference, but across thousands of units operating in critical environments, it meant dozens of potential failures instead of virtually none. Brandon was prioritizing profit margins over safety, and eventually someone was going to die. I had a choice. I could do nothing. I didn't work for Meridian anymore. I had no legal obligation to intervene. Brandon had made his decision. If it blew up, that was on him, or I could try to stop it. I spent 3 days wrestling with the decision. Jennifer thought I should stay out of it. They fired you, David. Ma, you don't owe them anything. Let Brandon deal with the consequences of his own choices. She was right. I didn't owe them anything. But I kept thinking about the workers in those chemical plants, the communities surrounding those facilities, the families who would be devastated if a pump failed and caused a disaster. This wasn't about Meridian anymore. It was about preventing a tragedy I could see coming. I reached out to Robert Meridian. He had retired, but still lived locally. He agreed to meet me for coffee. Robert was 74, still sharp, but clearly diminished by retirement. He seemed genuinely happy to see me. David, I heard what happened. I'm sorry. Brandon didn't consult me on that decision, but I wouldn't have approved it. You were one of the best people I ever hired. Thank you, Robert. I need to talk to you about something serious, something that could destroy the company if it's not addressed immediately. I walked him through everything Martin had sent me, the alloy change, the cost savings, the increased failure rates, the potential for catastrophic accidents. Robert's face went pale. My God, does Brandon understand what he's approved? I don't think he does. I think his consultants ran a cost-benefit analysis that only looked at profit margins, not real-world risk, but whether he understands or not, this needs to be stopped before someone gets hurt. What do you need from me? Talk to him. You still own 40% of the company. You have influence. Make him reverse this decision before it's too late. Robert contacted Brandon that evening. I don't know exactly what was said, but I heard about the outcome from Martin 2 days later. Brandon had refused to reverse the decision. He told his father that the company was under new leadership and that operational decisions were no longer subject to second-guessing from retired executives. He accused Robert of undermining his authority and suggested that if Robert didn't trust his judgment, perhaps he should sell his remaining equity. The conversation had apparently ended badly. Brandon had essentially told his father to stay out of company affairs. I was out of options. Or I thought I was. Then I remembered something. During my years at Meridian, I had built relationships with dozens of clients, not just transaction contacts, but real relationships. I knew the plant managers, the procurement directors, the safety officers at companies that bought our equipment. I had their personal contact information. I had their trust. I started making calls. Quietly, carefully, I didn't badmouth Meridian. I just asked questions. Hey, have you noticed any changes in the quality of recent deliveries? Has your engineering team reviewed the metallurgy reports on the new pump models? Have you guys stress tested the equipment that arrived in the last few months? Some brushed me off, but others started asking their own questions, started requesting additional documentation from Meridian, started running tests they wouldn't normally run. 3 weeks later, one of Meridian's largest clients, a major chemical company, discovered through routine testing that the new pumps had a higher failure rate than specified in the contract. They demanded an explanation. When Meridian couldn't provide a satisfactory answer, the client suspended their contract pending a full quality review. Then another client found the same issue, then another. Within 6 weeks, 5 major clients had either suspended orders or demanded that Meridian revert to the original specifications. Brandon panicked. He tried to blame the production team, tried to blame vendors, tried to claim the tests were flawed, but the evidence was undeniable. The cost-cutting measure had compromised quality, and clients were holding Meridian accountable. The company was hemorrhaging revenue. Orders were being cancelled. New clients weren't signing. Word was spreading in the industry that Meridian's quality had declined under new leadership. Brandon called an emergency board meeting. According to Martin, who heard about it secondhand, Brandon had blamed everyone, the consultants, in the production team, the vendors, even his father for allegedly sabotaging his leadership. But the board wasn't buying it. They had the numbers. Revenue down 38% in 6 months. Client retention at historic lows. Quality complaints up by 400%. The company was in crisis. The board demanded changes. Brandon refused. He insisted his strategy was sound and just needed more time to prove itself. The board voted to remove him as CEO. They needed someone who could stabilize operations immediately, someone who understood the company's systems, had relationships with clients, could restore confidence in Meridian's quality. They needed someone who had actually kept the company running successfully for over a decade. Robert Meridian called me on a Tuesday morning in early December, 6 months after my termination. David, the board wants to offer you the CEO position, full operational control, competitive salary and equity package, whatever support you need to fix what Brandon broke. Will you come back? I should have felt vindicated, triumphant. This was the moment where justice prevailed and the wronged hero got his redemption. But all I felt was tired. Robert, I appreciate the offer, but I need to be honest with you. I don't want to come back to Meridian. There was a long silence. I understand you're angry. You have every right to be, but the company is in real trouble. We need you. 6 months ago, your son told me my experience didn't align with Meridian's future. He said I wasn't the right person for where the company was going. Turns out he was half right. I'm not the right person for Meridian, not anymore, because I've spent the last 6 months building something that doesn't require me to beg for recognition or prove my worth to people who don't value it. What are you talking about? I've been consulting, helping other manufacturing companies optimize their operations, build vendor relationships, implement quality control. Word of mouth has been strong. I have 4 active clients, 2 more starting next month. I'm making more money than I did at Meridian with a quarter of the stress. And everything I build belongs to me. Nobody can take it away. David, please think about the employees, think about the legacy we built together. I have thought about them, which is why I'm going to make you a counteroffer. I'll consult for Meridian on a contract basis. 6 months, fixed fee, with specific deliverables around stabilizing operations and restoring client relationships. I'll train whoever you hire as the permanent CEO, but I'm not coming back as an employee. I'm done with that. Robert agreed to my terms. The board approved a consulting contract worth $300,000 for 6 months of work. Triple what I had been making as Director of Operations. I walked back into Meridian in early January, not as a desperate former employee begging for his job back, but as an independent consultant with leverage and clear boundaries. The first thing I did was reverse every operational change Brandon had implemented. restored the original vendor relationships, reinstated the premium alloy specifications, brought back experienced floor managers, rebuilt the quality control processes that had been dismantled. It took 3 months to stabilize operations. Client confidence gradually returned. Orders started flowing again. By April, Meridian was back to profitability, and the board had hired a new CEO, a 58-year-old manufacturing veteran who actually understood the industry. I fulfilled my contract and walked away, but this time on my own terms, with my reputation intact and my bank account healthier than it had ever been. My consulting practice continued to grow. I hired 2 associates to help with the workload. We specialized in helping mid-sized manufacturers navigate operational challenges without sacrificing quality or safety. My experience at Meridian became a case study I used with clients. What happens when you prioritize short-term cost savings over long-term value creation? A year after my termination, I was making over $400,000 annually, working 40-hour weeks, never missing family events, and actually enjoying my work. I had autonomy, respect, and the satisfaction of building something that couldn't be taken away by someone else's whim. Brandon Meridian, meanwhile, struggled to find another executive position. His LinkedIn showed a series of short-term consulting gigs, none lasting more than 6 months. The industry is small. Word spreads quickly about leaders who prioritize optics over outcomes. His brief tenure at Meridian became a cautionary tale about what happens when you let consultants drive strategy without understanding operational reality. I ran into him once at an industry conference. He avoided eye contact at first, but eventually came over during a networking break. "David, I heard about your consulting firm. Sounds like it's going well." "It is. How are things with you?" He gave a tight smile. Figuring out my next move, exploring opportunities. There was an awkward pause, then he said, "Look, I know I made mistakes at Meridian. I was trying to make my mark, prove I could lead differently than my father. I thought modernization meant rejecting everything that came before. I was wrong." It was the closest thing to an apology I would get from him. "You weren't wrong about everything, Brandon. Meridian did need to evolve, but evolution doesn't mean destruction. You can modernize while preserving what works. You just chose to throw out the foundation along with the scaffolding." "Yeah, I figured that out a little too late." He paused. "For what it's worth, firing you was the worst decision I made. Not because of what happened after, but because I never even considered that your experience might be more valuable than consultant theories. I was arrogant." "I appreciate you saying that." We talked for a few more minutes, mostly superficial industry gossip, and then parted ways. I felt no satisfaction from his struggles, no sense of revenge fulfilled, just a quiet recognition that his choices had natural consequences, just as mine did. The real revenge wasn't his failure, it was my independence. For 11 years, I had tied my identity to Meridian, my worth to their evaluation of me. When they fired me, I felt like I had lost everything, but what I actually lost was the illusion that my value came from institutional approval. The truth is, I was always valuable. My skills, my experience, in my relationships. Those were portable assets that existed independently of any company. Brandon didn't take those away when he fired me. He just forced me to recognize them and leverage them on my own terms. Today, 3 years after my termination, my consulting firm has 8 employees and works with over 30 manufacturing companies across 3 states. We've prevented at least a dozen safety incidents by helping companies prioritize quality over cost cutting. We've saved 3 companies from bankruptcy by optimizing their operations. We've trained over 100 managers in effective leadership practices that value both efficiency and people. I make more money than I ever did at Meridian. I have equity in something I built. I have autonomy over my schedule and my decisions. No, I have relationships with clients who value my expertise and pay me what it's worth. And I have peace, the kind that comes from knowing that my success isn't dependent on anyone else's permission or approval. Meridian still exists. It's stable now, profitable, well managed. Robert eventually sold his remaining equity and fully retired. The new CEO occasionally brings me in for specialized projects. We have a good professional relationship built on mutual respect and fair compensation. Brandon is working as a mid-level operations manager at a manufacturing company in Pittsburgh. I heard through mutual contacts that he's actually doing well in the role. Sometimes people need to be humbled before they can learn. I hope he learned. The lesson I took from all of this isn't about revenge, it's about self-worth. For too long, I believed that loyalty to a company would be rewarded with loyalty in return. That dedication would be recognized and valued. That doing excellent work was enough to protect me from arbitrary decisions. I was wrong. Companies are not families. Employment is not marriage. Loyalty is transactional, not reciprocal. The moment your presence becomes inconvenient to someone in power, your history becomes irrelevant. But that's not a tragedy. It's liberation. Once you accept that your value exists independently of any institution, you can make decisions based on what's best for you rather than what's expected by others. You can build equity instead of just earning salary. You can create leverage instead of hoping for mercy. Brandon thought he was upgrading when he fired me. He thought a fresh perspective would be better than experienced competence. He learned the hard way that experience isn't just about knowing what to do, it's about knowing what not to do. It's about understanding that some problems don't have modern solutions. They have proven solutions that work, precisely because they've been tested over time. The consultants who advised him saw the world through spreadsheets and theories. They optimized for metrics that sounded impressive in presentations, but didn't account for real-world complexity. They confused efficiency with effectiveness, cost reduction with value creation, change with improvement. I saw the world through results, through relationships built over years, through understanding that manufacturing isn't just about processes and systems. It's about people making things that matter. And those people need leadership that respects both their expertise and their safety. If I could go back and prevent my firing, I wouldn't. Not because I'm grateful to Brandon, but because his decision forced me to discover capabilities I didn't know I had. It forced me to build something I actually owned. It forced me to stop measuring my worth by someone else's standards. That's worth more than any severance package or CEO title. When people ask me how I got revenge on the company that fired me, I tell them the truth. I didn't get revenge. I got free. Free from the belief that my career had to follow a corporate ladder. Free from the anxiety of being expendable. Free from the need to prove my worth to people who couldn't recognize it. I saved Meridian, not because they deserved it, but because the workers and clients didn't deserve to suffer for Brandon's incompetence. Then I walked away and built something better. That's not revenge. That's evolution. If you've ever been betrayed at work, you're not alone. Where are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe to Office Revenge Hub for more powerful workplace revenge stories.